Hi guys, welcome to Ashutosh Coaching Center. Now today we are going to start chapter number 14 ecosystem. Let's start. Let's start. This is an ecosystem can be visualized as a function unit of nature where living organisms can interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. Ecosystem varies greatly in size from small pond to a large forest or a sea. Many ecologists regard the entire biosphere as a global ecosystem, but as a composite of all local ecosystem on the earth. Since this system is too much and big complex to be studied at one time, it is convenient to divide it into two basic categories, namely the terrestrial and the aquatic. Forest, grassland, and desert are some example of terrestrial ecosystem. Pond, lake, wetland, trail, rivers, and estuaries are the some example of aquatic ecosystem. Point and crop yields and an aquarium may also be considered as man-made ecosystem. We will first look at the structure of ecosystem in order to appreciate the input and the productivity, the transfer of food chain and the web and the nutrient cycling and the output degradation and energy loss. We also took at the relationships, recycles, chains, waves. They are the created as a result of these energy flows within the system and their interrelationship. Now figure 14.1 ecosystem and the structure of and also a function. It means that this is the name of 14.1. This is a topic. As we know that in this chapter number 13, you have looked at the various component of the environmental abiotic and biotic. You studied how the individual biotic and the abiotic factors affected each other and their surrounding. Let us look at these component in a more integrated manner and see how the flow of energy takes place within this component of ecosystem. Interaction of biotic and abiotic component result in a physical structure and that is characterized for each type of ecosystem. Identification and enumeration of plants and animals species of an ecosystem gives the species composition. Vertical distribution of different species occupy different level of is called stratification. And for example, trees occupy two vertical strata or layer of a forest. Shrubs, the second, and the herbs grass occupy bottom layer. The component of the ecosystem are seen to be as a function as a unit when you consider the following aspects. First, productivity. Second, decomposition. And third, energy flow. And fourth, nutrients scrying. To understand ethos of an aquatic ecosystem, let us take a small pond as an example. This is fairly a self-sustainable unit and rather simple example and explain even the complex interaction that exists in an aquatic ecosystem. A pond is a shallow water body in which all the above mentioned four basic components of an ecosystem are well exhibited. The abiotic component is the water. All dissolved inorganic organic substance are rich in soil deposit at the bottom of pond. The solar input and the cycle of temperature, daylight and other climatic conditions regulate the rate of function of entire pond. The autotrophic component include the phytoplankton and some algae and the floating, submerged and the marginal plants found at the edges. The consumer are represented by the zooplankton and the free swimming and the bottom dwelling form. The decomposer are the fungi, bacteria and flagellates especially abundant in the bottom of the pond. This system perform all the functions of any ecosystem and of the biosphere as a whole. that is conversion of inorganic into organic material with the help of radiant energy of the sun by the autotroph, consumption of the autotrophs by the heterotrophs, decomposition and mineralization of dead matter to release them back for reuse by the autotrophs. These events are repeated over again. There is indirectly movement of energy towards the higher trophic level and its dissipation and loss as heat to the environment. 14.2 Productivity. Let's talk about productivity. What is productivity? Let's talk. The constant input of solar energy is a basic requirement for any ecosystem to the function and sustain. Primary production is defined as the amount of biomass or organic matter. Okay, organic matter and produce per area over a time period. Plants during the photosynthesis it's expressed in the term of weight gram per meter square and the energy kilocalorie per meter square. The rate of biomass product is called productivity and it is expressed in the term of gram per meter square or yard meter per meter square or calorie per meter square yard inverse. Okay, to compare the productivity of different ecosystem, it can be divided into gross primary production GPP and net primary productivity NPP. And gross primary productivity of an ecosystem is the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. The considerable amount of GPP is the utilized by the plants in respiration. Gross primary productivity minus respiration losses R and is the net primary productivity NPP. It is the formula NPP minus R is equal to NPP. GPP minus R is equal to NPP. This formula is very necessary for the point of view of examination. Now let's come out the next line. Net primary productivity is available biomass of consumption. Two heterotrophs, herbivorous and decomposer. Secondary productivity is defined as the ratio of formation of organic matter consumer. Okay, the primary productivity depends on the plant's species inhabiting particular area. It is also depend on a variety of environmental factor, availability of nutrients and the photosynthesis capacity of plants. Therefore it varies in different type of ecosystem. The annual net primary productivity of whole biosphere is approximately 170 billion of dry weight of organic matter. Of this, despite occupying 70% of the surface, the productivity of oceans are only 55 billion tons. Rest of course is on the land. Discuss the main reason for the law of productivity of ocean with your teacher. Now 14.3 Decomposition. You may have heard of earthworm being referred as the farmer friend. This is so because they help in the breakdown of complex organic matter as well as in the losing in the soil. Similarly, decomposer break the down complex matter into inorganic matter like carbon dioxide and water and nutrients, and the process is called decomposition. Dead plant remains such as leaves, bark, flowers, and dead remains animals, including fecal matter, constituent detritus, which is the raw of material of for the decomposition. Okay, the important step in the process of decomposition are fragmentation, leaching, and the catabolism, humidification, and the mineralization. Detritivores, like example earthworm. Okay, what is that? Earthworm. Now next is our earthworm normally breaks down the detritus into smaller particles. This process is called fragmentation. By the process of leaching, water and the soluble inorganic nutrients go down into a soil horizon, get precipitation as unable salt. Bacteria and fungal enzymes degrade detritus in simpler or inorganic substance. This is called catabolism. And it is important to note that all the above steps in decomposition operate the simultaneously on the detritus. Humidification and mineralization occurs during the decomposition in the soil. Sorry for that, by fault ये back हो गया. Okay, humidification is what? Now this is a figure, you can check about this, and this figure can be clear your concept as well as shown in figure. Okay, now this is the 14.1 diagrammatic representation of decomposition cycle is the terrestrial ecosystem. Okay, now let's come out next line. Now this is the accumulation of dark colored amorphous substance humus that is highly resistant to microbial action and undergoes decomposition at an extremely slow rate, and being colloidal in nature, it serves as a reservoir of nutrients. The humus is further degraded by the some microbes, and release of inorganic nutrients occur by the process known as the mineralization. Decomposition is large and oxygen requiring process. The rate decomposition is controlled by the chemical decomposition of detritus and a climatic factor. In a particular climatic condition, decomposition rate is slower if detritus is rich in lignin and chitin, and quicker and if detritus is rich in nitrogen and water soluble substance like sugar. Then temperature and soil moisture are the most important climatic factor that regulate the decomposition through their effect on the activities of soil microbes. Warm and moist environments favor decomposition, whereas low temperature anaerobiosis. What is this? Anaerobiosis inhibited decomposition, resulting in build up of organic material. Energy flow. Except for the deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, sun is only the source of energy of all ecosystem on the earth. Of the incident solar radiation, less 50% of its photosynthetically active radiation, that is PAR. We know that the plant and the photosynthetic bacteria autotroph. The sun's radiate energy to make food from the organic material. ठीक है. The plants capture 2 to 10% of PAR. This small amount of energy is sustain the entire living world. Okay, so it is very important to know how the solar energy captured by the plant and through the different organism of an ecosystem. All organisms depend on for their food producer either directly or indirectly. So you find the indirectly flow of energy from the sun producer and then consumer. Is this in keeping with the first law of thermodynamic? Maybe yes. Let's check out. Further, ecosystems are not exempt from the second law of thermodynamics. They need a constant supply of energy to synthesize the molecules required interact the universal tendency towards increasing the disorderliness. The green plant in the ecosystem are called producer. In a terrestrial ecosystem, the major producer are herbaceous or woody plants. Likewise, producer is in an aquatic ecosystem are various species like phytoplankton, algae, and higher plants. You have read about the food chain and web exist in nature. Starting from the plant's producer, food chain or rather web are formed such that an animal and feeds on the plants or the mother and animals or another animals in turns is back for food another, okay, food for another. And the chain or wave is formed because of interdependency, okay, interdependency. No matter that is trapped into organic remains in it forever. The energy trapped by the producer hence is either passed on to the consumer or organic dies. Death of organic is beginning of detritus food chain or web, okay. All depend on plants directly or indirectly for their food needs. They are hence called consumer or heterotrophs, okay. If they feed or producer the plant, they are called primary consumer, and if eat other animals which turns back into eat plants or their produces, that is called, yeah, they are called secondary consumer. Likewise, you could have tertiary consumer. Obviously the primary consumer will be herbivores, and some common herbivores are insects, birds, animals, mammals in terrestrial ecosystem, and mollusks in aquatic system, okay. The consumer that feed on the herbivores are car- herbivores are carnivores, or more correctly primary carnivores. Through the secondary consumer, these animals that depend on the primary carnivores for food labeled secondary carnivores. And a simple dazzling food chain that GFC is depicted below. This is grass, goat, man, okay. Like grass eaten by goat and goat is eaten by humans. That is producer, primary, secondary, okay. Now, detritus food chain DFC begins and dead organic matter. It is made up of decomposers which are heterotrophic organisms, mainly fungi and bacteria. They meet their energy and nutrients requirements by the degrading dead organic matter or detritus. These are also known as saprotrophs. Saprotroph means to say decompose. Decomposers secrete digestive enzymes that break down dead and waste material into simple inorganic material which are subsequently absorbed by them. In an aquatic ecosystem, GFC is the major conduit 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 for energy flow. As against this is a terrestrial ecosystem. A much larger fraction of energy flows through the detritus food chain than than through GFC. Okay, then through GFC. Detritus food chain may be connected with the daging food chain at the same level. Some of the organism of DFC as they prey to the GFC animal, and in a natural ecosystem, some animals like a cockroach, crows, etc. are omnivorous. These natural interconnection of food chain makes a food web, okay. And how would you like to how would you classify the human beings? Organisms occupy a place in the natural surrounding or in a community according to their feeding relationship with the other organism. Based on the source of their nutrients or food, organisms occupy a specific place in the food chain that is known as the trophic level. Predators belongs to the first trophic level, herbivorous primary consumer to the second, and the carnivorous secondary consumer to the third. Like here is a example shown, like a producer, then primary second consumer, secondary consumer and tertiary consumer. प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर या फूड जो कहते हैं प्रोड्यूसर जो होता है, प्रोड्यूसर को फर्स्ट ट्रॉपिक लेवल भी कहा जाता है जो कि प्लांट में होता है, और प्राइमरी कंज्यूमर को सेकंड ट्रॉपिक लेवल कहा है जिसको हर्बीवोरस में इंक्लूड किया जाता है. फिर थर्ड है हमारा ट्रॉफिक लेवल या फिर सेकेंडरी कंज्यूमर। उसके बाद हमारा फोर्थ ट्रॉफिक लेवल या फिर टर्शरी कंज्यूमर, जिसमें मैन और लायंस आते हैं। ओके ओके, ये डायग्रामेटिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ ट्रॉफिक लेवल है, मतलब किसी भी इकोसिस्टम में जिसका ट्रॉफिक लेवल है उसका रिप्रेजेंट किया हुआ एक डायग्राम है, जिसको आप इजीली याद कर सकते हैं। ओके, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर द नीट एग्जाम। ओके, आगे the important point to note in this in is that the amount of energy decrease at the successive trophic level. When any organism dies, is it converted to detritus or dead biomass that serves as a energy source of decomposer. Organisms at each trophic level depend on those at the trophical level of their energy demands. Each trophic level has a certain mass of living materials at a particular time is called standing crops, and the standing crops is measured as a mass of living organism biomass. Okay, or the number in a unit area, and the biomass of a species expressed in the term of fresh and dry weight. By dry weight measurement of biomass is termed by the dry weight is more accurate. Why? The number of trophic level in the grazing food chain is restricted as the transfer of energy flow 10%. Only 10% of the energy is transferred to each trophic level from the lower trophic level. In nature, it is possible to have so many levels: producers, herbivores, primary, and the secondary carnivores or carnivores in the grazing food chain. Figure 14.3 has shown already. This is. Do you think there is any such limitation in a detritus food chain? This is the food chain or trophic level of energy. Okay. Now, ecological pyramid. You must be familiar with the shape of a pyramid. Okay. Shape of a pyramid. The base of a pyramid is broad and it narrow towards apex. One gets its similar shape and whether you express the food of energy relationship between the organism. At a different trophic level, the relationship is expressed in the term of number, biomass, or energy. The base of each pyramid represent the producers or trophic levels, while the apex represent tertiary and the top level consumer. The three types of ecological pyramid are usually studied are first are pyramid of number, उसके pyramid of biomass, उसके pyramid of energy. For detail 14.4 and ABCD, this is the figure. Okay, now you can see or we can see figure 14.4 का ABCD like this 14 का A 14.4 का A 14.4 का B और 14.4 का CB. Okay, this is a very important point of view of needs, so you should, this is a very important line. Okay, for your kind information it is a very important for you. Note this, और चाहे तो आप इसका स्क्रीनशॉट भी ले सकते हो, क्योंकि ये सब चीज़ जल्दी इंसान भूलता है, जिस कारण से आपको ये बहुत काम आ सकता है, ताकि आप बाद में ना भूलो. Okay, next, and this is also important for you. Okay, this is okay, like note this also. Okay, now start. Any calculation of energy, तो जूम कर लेते हैं. अब ठीक है. Any calculation of energy content or biomass or numbers has to include all in organism. This is the waste of time. इसको यहाँ रखो. Organism. Okay, at the trophic level, no generalization we make will be true if we take only a few individuals at any trophic level it into accounts. Also, a given organism may occupy more than one trophic level simultaneously. One must remember that trophic level represent a functional level, not a species such a not a species as a such. A given species may occupy more than one trophic level in the same ecosystem at the same time. For example, a sparrow is a primary consumer when it eats fruits, peas, and a secondary consumer. Okay, when it when it eats insect and worms, can you work out how many trophic levels human beings function at in a food chain? In ecosystem, all pyramids of number or of energy and of biomass are upright. Okay, that is, producers are more in number biomass than herbivores. Okay, and herbivores are more in number biomass than carnivores. Also, energy at a lower trophic level is always more than at higher level. There are exceptions to this generalization. If you were count the number of insects feeding on a big tree, what kind of pyramid would you get? Now add an estimate of number of small birds depending on the insect, as also the number of large birds eating the smaller, and the draw a shape of would you get. Okay, you would get the pyramid of biomass in sea is generally inverted because biomass of fishes far exceed that phytoplankton. Isn't that a paradox? Would you explain this? The pyramid of energy is always upright. Can you never be inverted? Because when energy flows from a particular trophic level to next trophic level, some energy is always lost as the heat at each step. Each bar is in the energy pyramid indicate the amount of energy present at a trophic level in a given time or annual per unit area. Okay, now, however, there are certain limitation ecological pyramids such as uh, it does not take into account the same species belonging to or more trophic level. It assumes a simple food chain, something that almost next exists in nature. It doesn't accommodate a food chain, food web. Moreover, saprophytic are not given at any place ecological pyramid, even though and they play a vital role in the ecosystem. 14.6 Ecological succession. You have learnt in chapter 13 the characteristic of population and community and also their response to environment, and how such a response vary from individual response. Let us examine another aspect of community response to environment over time. An important characteristic of all community is that their composition, structure, and constantly changes in response to the changing environmental condition. This change is orderly and sequentially parallel with the change in the physical environment. These changes lead finally to a community that is in a near equilibrium with the environment, and that is called climax community. The gradual and the fairly predictable predictable and change in the species composition of a food given is called food given of a given area is called ecological succession. During succession, some species colonize an area and their population become more numerous, whereas population of other species decline and even disappear. The entire sequence of community that successively change in the given area are called seed. Okay, the individual the individual of transitional community termed as serial stages or serial community. In the successive stages, there is a change in the diversity of species of organism, increase in the number of species organism, as well as as an increase in the total biomass. The present day communities in the world have come to because of succession that has occurred over millions of years since life started or on earth since life started on the earth. Actually, succession and evolution would have been parallel and processes at that time. Succession is hence a process that start in it in an area where no living organisms are there. This could be area there were no there were sorry where no living organism were ever exist. Say bare rocks or in area that somehow lost all the organism that existed here. Okay, the formers is called primary succession while the later term is secondary succession. Example of area where primary succession occurs are newly cooled lava and bare rocks and newly created ponds and reservoir. The establishment of new biotic community is generally slow. Before a biotic community of diverse organisms can become established, there must be soil, depending mostly on the climate, and it takes natural process several hundreds to the several thousand years produce fertile soil on a bare rock. Secondary succession begins in area where natural biotic communities have been destroyed, such as in abundant farms land, burned or cut forest, land that have been flooded, and since some soil or sediment is present. Succession is faster than primary succession. Description of ecological succession usually focuses on changes vegetation. However, these vegetational changes is in turns affect food and sheltered for various types of animal. Thus, as succession proceed, the number and the type of animals decomposed also change. At any time during the primary or secondary succession, the natural or humans induced disturbance. Fire deforestation can convert a particular serial stages of succession to an earlier stage. Also, such disturbance create new condition that encourage some species and discouraged or eliminated other species. 14.6.1 Succession of plant based on the nature of habitat, whether it is water or very hot or very wet areas, or it is on a dry areas. Succession of plants is hydrarch or azerarch respectively. Hydrarch succession it takes place in the wet areas successional series and progress from the hydric to the mesic condition, as the against Chirac succession takes place in dry area and series progress from the xeric to mesic condition. Hence, the both hydrarch Chirac succession lead to the medium water condition and the mesic, neither to dry xeric nor to wet hydric. Okay. Now the terminology. The species that invade a bare area are called pioneer species. In primary succession on rock, these are usually lichen which are able to secrete acid and dissolve rock, helping in weathering and the soil formation. These later pave way to some small plant like bryophyta, which are able to take and hold in the small amount of soil. They are with time succeed by higher plant, and the after several more stages ultimately stable climax forest community is formed. The climax community remain stable as long as the environment remains unchanged. With the time of xerophytic habitat gets converted into a mesophytic one. In primary succession in water, the pioneer are the small phytoplankton which are replaced with time by the rooted submerged plant, and a rooted floating angiosperm floated by a free floating plants, and the reed swamp and marsh meadow, scrub, and the finally the trees. The climax would be forest, and with the water body is converted into a land. Figure 20.5. In secondary succession, the species that invade depend on the condition of the soil, availability of water, the environment, as also the seeds or the propagules present. Since soil is already there, the rate of succession is much faster, and hence climax is also reached more quickly. What is important to understand is that succession, and particularly primary succession, is very slow process, taking maybe thousand of. This is a diagram. Okay, I think you should take screenshot of this figure, okay, because this is very important. All figures are mostly important for the NEET एग्जाम, बिकॉज फिगर को जो याद करने का जो प्रोसेस होता है वो काफ़ी लंबा होता है, जिस कारण से ज़्यादा फिगर होने के कारण लोग याद तो नहीं कर पाते, इसलिए आप थोड़ा थोड़ा करके ही इसको याद करने का प्रयास करें. नाउ years of the climax to be reached. Another important fact is to understand that all succession, whether taking places in water or land, proceed to a similar climax community is basic. Nutrient cycle, what is? You have already studied in class 11th. The organism need a constant supply of nutrients to grow and the reproduce and the regulate various body function. The amount of nutrients such as carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and calcium, etc., okay, and present in the soil. Let me एक मिनट जूम कर लीजिए. Now, okay. Calcium present in the soil at any given time is referred to as standing rate state, and it varies in different kind of ecosystem and also a seasonal basic. What is the importance to appreciate that nutrients which are never lost from a ecosystem, rather they are recycled time again indefinitely, and the movement of nutrients elements through the various component of ecosystem is called nutrient cycle. And another name of nutrient cycle is called by big geochemical cycle. Okay, इसमें नॉर्मली रॉक होते हैं. जियो मतलब होता क्या है? जियो मतलब होता है अर्थ. अर्थ पे क्या क्या पाया जाता है? रॉक पाया जाता है, एयर, वाटर, ये सब पाया जाता है. अब बायो मतलब लिविंग. ओके, न्यूट्रिएंट साइकिल आर टू टाइप्स, गैसियस एंड सेडिमेंट्री. ओके, न्यूट्रिएंट साइकिल जो होता है वो दो टाइप का होता है, गैसियस एंड सेडिमेंट्री. Reservoir for gases type of nutrient cycle, example nitrogen carbon cycle, okay, exist in the atmosphere, and for the sedimentary cycle, example sulfur and the phosphorus. Reservoir is located in the earth's crust, and the environmental factors, example soil moisture, pH, temperature, etc., and regulate the rate of release of nutrients into a atmosphere. The function of reservoir to meet with the deflect which occurs due to the imbalance in the rate of influx and efflux. You have made a detailed study of nitrogen cycle in class 11th. Here we discuss carbon and phosphorus cycle. 14.7.1 ecosystem and carbon cycle. When you study the composition of a living organism, carbon and constitute 49% of dry weight of organism, and as the next to water. If we look at the total quantity of global carbons, we find 71% carbon is found dissolved in ocean. These oceans reservoir regulate the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. 14.6. Do you know that the atmosphere only contain about 1% of total global carbon? Okay. Fossil fuel also represent a reservoir of carbon. Carbon cycle occurs through the atmosphere, ocean and through the living, dead and organism. According to one estimate, 4 into 10 power 3 kg carbon is fixed annually in the biosphere through the photosynthesis. A considerable amount of carbon carbon returns to the atmosphere as CO2. Okay, through a respiratory activity of the producers and consumer. Decomposer always contribute a sustainable uh, to CO2 pulled by the processing of waste material and dead organic matter and of land and ocean. Some amount of fixed carbon and is lost to sediment and removed from the circulation of burning of wood. Forest fire is combustion of organic matter. Fossil fuel volcanic activity are additional to the source of releasing CO2 in the atmosphere. Human activities have significantly influenced the carbon cycle and the rapid deforestation and the massive the burning of fossil fuel for energy and transport have significantly increased the rate of release of carbon dioxide into atmosphere. Okay, see greenhouse effect in chapter 16. Okay. Now इकोसिस्टम में कौन सा है, ये हमारा है फॉस्फोरस साइकिल. 14.7.2 ecosystem phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is the major constituent biological membrane and nucleic acid and cellular energy transfer system. Many animals also need large quantity of this element to make cell and teeth and bones, and the natural reservoirs of phosphorus is rock and which contain phosphorus in the form of phosphate and the when rocks are weathered, minute of the phosphate dissolve in the soil solution and are absorbed by the root and the herbivores and the other animals obtained this element from plants. The waste product and the dead organism are decomposed by the phosphate solubilizing bacteria releasing phosphorus. Unlike carbon cycle, and there is no respiratory release of phosphorus into atmosphere. Can you differentiate between the carbon and the phosphorus cycle? The other two major and the differences between the carbon and the phosphorus cycle are firstly atmospheric input of phosphoric through the rainfall are the much smaller than the carbon input, and the secondly gases. Okay, this is the figure 14.7. this is also important. इसे भी आप नोट कर ले, जितने भी फिगर है उसे नोट करते जाइए क्योंकि बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं एग्जाम के व्यूज. ओके, अब नाउ exchange of phosphorus between organism and environment are the negligible. मतलब उसका जो दोनों का जो environment और बीच का जो डिफरेंस होता है phosphorus का वो काफ़ी negligible होता है, इसके लिए उसे नोट नहीं किया जाता है. अब देख लेते हैं हम इकोसिस्टम सर्विस होता क्या है. व्हाट इज इकोसिस्टम सर्विस. 14.8 healthy ecosystem are the base for a wide range of economic, environmental and aesthetic good and services. The product of ecosystem processes are the named as ecosystem. For example, healthy forest ecosystem purify air and water and mitigate drought and flood and cycle nutrients and generate fertile soil, provide wildlife habitat and maintain biodiversity, pollinate crops and provide storage site of for carbon dioxide and also provide aesthetic culture and spiritual value. Through value of such services of biodiversity is difficult to determine. It seems reasonable of to think that biodiversity should cry to hefty price tag. Robert Costanza and his colleague have very recently tried to put price tags on nature's life support service. Researchers have put an average price tag on the 33 US dollar trillion, okay, in a year, or these fundamental ecosystem services which are largely taken granted because they are free. This is nearly twice is the value of global national product GNP, which is normally 18 US dollar trillion. Okay, 18 trillion US dollars. Out of total cost of various ecosystem, the soil formation account and the about 50%, and the contribution of other services like recreation and nutrient cycle are less than 10%, and the cost of climate regulate and the habitat for wildlife are about 6% each. नाउ लेट्स ये हमारा लास्ट एक समरी को भी देख लेते हैं कि समरी जो होता है एग्जाम के पॉइंट में तो होता क्या है। कंप्लीट चैप्टर पढ़ने में समरी पढ़ोगे ना तो पहले वाली चीज़ रिवाइज हो जाता है, इस कारण से समरी देख लेते हैं। लेट्स चेक आउट दैट समरी। एन इकोसिस्टम, अब इकोसिस्टम होता क्या है इसके बारे में जान लेते हैं। एन इकोसिस्टम इज अ स्ट्रक्चरल एंड फंक्शनल यूनिट ऑफ नेचर एंड द comprise biotic and abiotic components, and abiotic components are the organic materials, air, water and whereas biotic components are producer consumers. Okay, each system has characterized physical structure and resulting the interaction amongst the abiotic and biotic component. Species composition and the stratification are the two main types of structural feature of an organism. Based on the source of nutrients, every organism occupy places in an system. Productivity and decomposition and energy flow and the nutrient cycle are the four important components of an ecosystem. Primary productive is the rate of capture of solar energy or biomass production of producers. It is divided into two types: gross primary productivity GPP or net primary productivity NPP. Rate of capture of solar energy of total mass of total production of organic material is called GPP. NPP is the remaining biomass or the energy of left after utilization or the of producers. Secondary productivity is the rate of assimilation of food energy by the consumers. In decomposition, complex organic food compound of detritus are converted to carbon dioxide, water, inorganic nutrients by the decomposers. Hmm. And also तो हम लोग कहाँ पर थे। सेकेंडरी प्रोडक्टिविटी एसिमुलेशन ऑफ एनर्जी बाय द कंपोजर्स एंड इन डिकम्पोजिशन क्या होता है, कॉम्प्लेक्स organic compound of detritus are converted into carbon dioxide and water inorganic nutrients by the decomposers. Decomposition involves three steps, namely fragmentation and detritus and leaching and catabolism. Energy flow is the unidirectional and the first plant captured solar system, and then food is transferred from the producers to decomposers. Okay, of different traffic level in nature are connected to each other of food or energy relationship, forming a food chain. The storage and movement of nutrients each through the various component of the ecosystem is called nutrient cycling. The nutrients are the repeatedly used through this process. The nutrient cycling is of two types, gaseous and the sedimentary. Atmosphere or hydrosphere is the reservoir for the gaseous type of cycle, carbon, whereas the earth crust reservoir sedimentary type of phosphorus. Okay, productivity of ecosystem processes named as ecosystem service. Example, purification of air and water by the forest. Okay. The biotic community is dynamic and undergoes change with the passes of time, and the changes of sequentially order and the constituent ecological succession, and the succession begins and with invasion of bare lifeless and area by pioneer, which later have pay way for succession. Ultimately stable climax community is performed by, sorry only a formed the climax community remains such stable as long as the environmental remains undergoes change. So guys, thanks for the watching till the video end, and you are also a part of our NEET. So don't forget it about the like, subscribe and share this channel. Thanks you. Bye.